We're on and we're going?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're recording. All right. So, Allison, as we prepare to interview for first grade candidates, let's talk through some things that we're looking for from the right candidate with the right fit for Sundown Lane. Okay. All right. So think to our campus needs assessment, and some of the things that we're looking for goals wise is to grow our reading level by 25% in that first 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So one of our avenues that we do that is M-Class. So let's talk about what we're looking for in a candidate that can do that. What type of experience are you looking for?
I'm looking for somebody who's comfortable in guided reading, who has a strong classroom management, so she's able to hit her students that have certain levels that they need to work on and use M-Class if she's familiar with it, and be able to use that as progress monitoring, and so she can set up skills groups and get those kids moving.
There you go. Yeah, we had great success using progress monitoring. So I would like to continue that and just grow our skill as a team, as a first grade team.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about M-Class and using that and aligning other resources, what types of things would you like to see in a candidate when they talk resources that they're familiar with and they've used in the past, or that we may have in Canyon ISD that they can use as well?
Mm-hmm. I think being able to progress monitor and be able to use the Fontes and Pinnell resources for guided reading, pulling books. If she's unfamiliar with M-Class, that hopefully whenever Miss Lish gives her professional development when we come back to school in a couple weeks, that it will help her learn to be an improving teacher, so she can monitor what she needs specifically for each student, and those resources that give us through M-Class will help her track her goals with each student and on their reading level.
Okay, so talk to me about you guys as a PLC. What types of roles would you like this person to fill? Whenever someone leaves and someone new comes in, it creates a void. So in terms of managing the PLC expectation, what type of role would you like this person to fill?
I think since our current first grade team already has a strong teacher that's been here for 12, 13 years, I hope that this teacher that we're looking for can be an equal balance, and that they could delegate tasks to one another so that not one person in the PLC does everything, that you may not know who the lead learner is just because they all share those roles. So I hope that we can find somebody that can be a sponge, want to learn, feel confident in speaking up when she knows something worth sharing, and being bold and being comfortable in a leadership role as well.
Right, and that we, in 6 weeks time, we grow that confidence level in that person so that they are comfortable in terms of PLC. You know, PLCs are pretty demanding with our time when we look at data sheets from our district common assessments, and then we look at progressing kids through guided reading every 3 to 6 weeks, and that can be a daunting task. So we want to make sure we always support that person and grow their confidence level into taking some of that on themselves, so that you're not always that sole support of that right. We are all equal players in the game. Okay.
Yes, and then hopefully she has that experience with guided reading because of how much students do need to grow in first grade reading levels, and that she's able to use those data points, and she's able to update her sheet that we have that we all share as a campus for grade level, and she's able to update that every 3 to 6 weeks, maybe even sooner if those kids are moving faster, so that she's comfortable using technology to track her data and be able to look over that as well.
Good. Okay, I guess before we bring in our candidates, a good thing to remember is when we interview, you're not only looking for the smartest person in the room, maybe the one with the most experience, but you're looking for that fit that's going to work with your campus culture and climate. So just be prepared to think in the lines of discernment of who the right fit is. If we need to grow a skill with this candidate here or there, but overall looking at who would fit our culture and climate and who would fit our school community and manage our students and build those relationships with our students the best. How do you talk to me about how you feel about that role?
Oh, I think that's important, especially with Sundown Lane being such a small campus. I feel like we already have a good culture established. And so it'd be great to find somebody who can become one of us and a part of us, who shares our same values, and we all get along and just have that respect for one another, and who's willing to learn and who's willing to step up and take on responsibilities when some people aren't always willing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think when we look at our campus as a whole, one of the things we pride ourselves on, and it's in our campus improvement plan, is that we have a very positive culture and climate with a very diverse clientele. So I think it's important to look for that person that can not only come in and kind of assimilate with what we do, but add to it and nurture it in ways that some of us who have been here and are kind of used to the way things are, to add to that and give us some new energy, new blood, new ideas to further our culture and climate, since that really is what drives Sundown Lane.
And hopefully, since we looked over her resume before she came in, it looks like she has worked at a Title I school, so she will be familiar with the way things go, and we can ask and see what her experiences are to see how she can help bring new things to grow in that area with our students.
Okay. Are there any other things you want to talk about before we bring the candidate in? Did I cover everything, like in terms of what we're looking for in a candidate and things of that nature? Do you have some more to add?
I did see also on her resume that she has been a UIL coach, so she has been able to give that extracurricular activity.
I'm going to make a note on that.
And that she was able to lead the coaching, and she was the UIL coordinator. So she has been in that role as a teacher, even just being able to extend that for students and teachers. But other than that, we can bring her in.
Okay. Well, I'm going to step out. I'm going to grab her, and then we'll come in and we'll get started.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, Miss Beckner, I brought in Kara Hill for her interview today. Kara, this is Allison Beckner. She is a part of our first grade team, and she is going to help us interview today.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for having me today.
Yes, thanks for coming. We're happy to have you.
Okay, Kara, so first of all, I know you see a Chromebook sitting up here. We're doing some recording for some training purposes and educational purposes. Are you comfortable with your voice being recorded?
Absolutely, that's fine.
Okay. Let me stay in this call. So yes, you are comfortable with us recording just the video or the interview process?
Yes, that's fine.
All right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Don't want to add to the nerves, but we're just trying to get a little ahead of our game here.
That's okay.
Okay. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about our process. We're just kind of popcorn back and forth between the two of us with some questions for you. Please feel free to elaborate, extend, or ask us questions if we need to clarify something for you. Okay?
Okay. That sounds good.
All right. So I'm going to start us off. Share with us any information about your training and experience that you would feel that's important for us to know as we consider you for this position, and why you're interested in Sundown Lane.
Okay. So I got my start in Pampa. I taught Head Start for a semester, came in mid-semester and did that class. And then my husband and I got married, and we got the opportunity to move to Amarillo, and I got hired at Lakeview. I did 2 years of Head Start and pre-K there. I did 4 years of first grade and 1 year of third grade reading and social studies. And then I had the opportunity to go to Arden Road, where I taught for 5 years. I worked as an interventionist and just helped in different groups. And I'm just looking to get back in the classroom. I miss having a classroom of my own. Got experience at both title campuses and non-title campuses. Lakeview is a Title I campus. Arden Road is not. And so a variety of experiences in working with students from different populations and parents from different populations. I was the UIL coach and coordinator, so I've had the opportunity to serve in that area and lead out in that, and be able to see kids that get to experience those passions for different things that we do through UIL. I'm interested in coming to Sundown Lane because I have a passion for teaching kids from a Title I campus, and I know that this is a great place to be, and I know I could learn a whole lot from your team.
Awesome. Hey, can I ask an extension question?
Sure.
I heard you say that you've spent 5 years in intervention. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the programs and such that you use to provide those intervention strategies, and
Sure.
maybe some successes you've had that you can bring to us?
Yeah. So during my time in intervention, we did M-Class. iStation we did for a while, but it went away. Did a few math programs too, like Edgenuity, and we also use that some for reading. I use the Fontes and Pinnell system, so I'm familiar with their benchmark and with their classroom sets. And then as far as successes go, just using progress monitoring as a way to be able to track students' data and to see their growth, looking at their weekly progress from where they've come and where they're going, so I could create new strategies that might help benefit them and grow them as learners.
So familiar with strategy grouping?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Okay.
Great. Okay. Describe your approach in maintaining a well-disciplined classroom.
Well, I think discipline and instruction go hand in hand, and you can't really have great instruction without great discipline. And so I think it really comes down to spending those first few weeks on, number one, building relationships with students and making sure that your classroom culture and climate is a place where kids want to be every day, but also having those firm and consistent expectations, having a system for every single thing that you do. First graders are capable of doing every single thing that fourth graders are doing. You just have to train them in the right way. And so I know that I have a routine for students when they walk into the classroom. They're responsible for getting started on their bell work. They know how to put their things away. They know what to do when we go to stations. They know what to do at every point of the day. And my goal as a teacher is that if I'm gone, that those students can run the classroom without me present. Obviously, they need to substitute there for safety reasons, but that they would be able to manage that classroom basically on their own because they're so familiar with the routines and procedures.
Got you. Okay, so with your background in intervention, this next question I think is going to be a breeze for you. So explain what balanced literacy looks like in an elementary classroom and describe that framework from which you would teach it.
Okay, so balanced literacy in the elementary classroom, especially in a first grade classroom, you're just hitting all of those components of reading. You've got reading, you've got writing, you've got word study, you've got independent reading, independent writing. And so making sure that you have some form of a schedule to make sure that you're hitting all of those pieces. I think in a first grade classroom, that guided reading needs to be happening daily.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Stations are a big part of balanced literacy and making sure that students are hitting things that they've learned before and that they're continuing to practice skills that they've already learned, sight words, and even things as small as practicing character traits and things that they've learned throughout the year. Being able to balance that with a reading lesson every day, but sometimes knowing that we're going to have a word study lesson and there may be days that I swap that out with a writing lesson, just being able to balance both of those components. And then specifically using that framework for guided reading, just being able to incorporate all of those things into that lesson, making sure that you're hitting their prior knowledge whenever they're getting ready to read a book, drawing on those strategies that they've already used to be able to learn how to read, and incorporating some writing so they can show their knowledge of what they've read and what they've learned from reading.
Okay.
Great. How do you prove to yourself that your students are learning and improving? So it's a two-part question.
Okay.
How do you share that information with your students, and how do you share that information with parents?
So as I mentioned, I had 5 years of intervention experience, and so I did a lot of progress monitoring just as a part of the job. But even as a first grade teacher in my prior experience, I had a data folder that every single student kept, and we tracked everything from their reading level to their growth. At the time it was iStation, but I did the same thing with M-Class whenever I did intervention. Even looking at NWEA, that's another thing that we did, another program that I failed to mention, but we tracked their NWEA scores, and looking at their growth over time. We also track their accuracy level and their comprehension. So we're not just tracking that guided reading. They know they've got to have both of those pieces to be able to move. And so making students responsible for their own learning, sitting with them, going through that data folder, making them mark it. But then I also shared that with parents in a progress report, or when we met, and we call parents and we celebrate whenever they make growth, and we celebrate as a class as students make growth. I also track data as a collective class, being able to look at different assessments that we took and things of that nature, and looking at how students were growing overall, and we celebrated whole group as well.
Awesome. So you said something interesting to me, that you met with students. Did you meet with every individual student, and about how often, and when were good data points? Like, talk to me about your system for that.
So as far as guided reading goes, what I did when I was tracking those levels is every time I completed a progress monitor on a student, they brought their data folder to the guided reading table with them. And so that way, if we did a progress monitor, as they were switching out, one group was leaving, I just had them pull out their folder. I marked their accuracy, their comprehension, whatever we may have worked on that day. It may have been sight word data, and we tracked their sight word data. We marked it. We set a goal for next time. We high-fived and we moved on. So that process was quick.
So it was like a part of the routine.
Just
they
part
were
of the
very
routine.
used to it, very used to sharing those conversations with you.
That's
awesome.
Right.
I love that you created that system with how the kids just moved and rotated throughout. I love that.
Yes, and it's beneficial for kids too, because it makes them responsible for their own learning, and even in first grade, they can track their progress.
Oh,
and their learning.
absolutely.
And then you said setting goals so they know where they're going,
Mm-hmm.
and then they want to get there and do the things that you're teaching them because they're motivated to get there.
Good point. Goal setting for 6-year-olds. I love it.
Great.
They do understand goals. I've always known that. Okay. Ready for the next?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what makes an effective PLC? PLC is a big part of what we do here. It drives so much of our instruction, and so much of our data tracking and where we're going and the things that we need and the support that I need to be able to give to PLCs. So what ways would you contribute to your PLC regarding curriculum, instruction, and assessment?
Okay. As far as what makes an effective PLC, I think communication is so important. In the same way that you want to build relationships with your students and create that positive climate and culture, you want to do the same thing with the people you work with. We spend more time with the people we work with really than we do with our own families.
That's so true.
So I feel like it's important to build those relationships, to take time to get to know each other personally and professionally, and really learn each other's strengths. I think the best PLCs know their individual weaknesses and their individual strengths, and they learn how to use each other to play on those things. So being able to be vulnerable and say, I know this is not my area of strength, but I know it's Allison's area of strength, and she can help me with that. I just think that great PLCs share the load. As far as ways that I could contribute to my PLC with with curriculum and instruction and assessment, just my experience and knowing RLA, that's really my strongest background. I do have experience in math as well, from my time in a self-contained classroom, but I think just being able to bring that knowledge of progress monitoring and of how we can move those lowest performing students is something that I could really bring and help my PLC with.
Awesome. Very good.
What are some examples you would do with your students to instill a growth mindset? And how could you model this in your own learning to show students that you have this mindset as well?
So one of my favorite things to tell kids is that everyone makes mistakes, even Miss Snow, or Miss Hill, or Miss Beckner, whoever our team is, and I just want students to be aware that it's okay to make mistakes. So I think having that open dialogue with your students that, sometimes it happens in a lesson. Guys, my link isn't loading. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm going to go fix this really quick. That is an example of a growth mindset of I'm going to do better. I'm not going to panic on this little mistake that I've made. Some other examples of instilling a growth mindset in students, I think, comes back to even just that data folder that we use, being able to look at the things that kids are doing and be able to say, hey, today didn't go great. Let's set a goal for next time. Your lowest performing students, I think, can get really down on themselves because they struggle in every area. And so being able to set those little goals with them to say, you grew by 10 points today. It doesn't matter that they made a 30 on their test or that they only knew 2 out of the 50 sight words. You grew by 1 sight word. It's important to celebrate those things and encourage kids that we're looking at the things that they do well and setting that next small goal to get them where we want them to be.
Okay. All right. Okay, so talk to me about what you consider to be your area of strength. And you kind of hit on it in the previous, I think, question 6, but go ahead and talk to me about that strong background in RLA, and then maybe an area of growth.
Okay. So, yes, one of my strengths is being very knowledgeable in balanced literacy and just in all things reading.
Mm-hmm.
I think that another strength of mine is just communication and my ability to be able to connect with parents and with teachers and with the people that I work with, just because of the variety of meetings and conversations I've had to have through my experience. As far as areas of growth, I think it's important to always be a learner and be open to new ideas. I've been doing this for a while, and it doesn't mean that I can't learn things from the people that I'm working with. And so I also think it's important to be able to ask for help whenever it's needed. Just because you've been doing this for a while doesn't mean there may not be things that you need some help with. And I think it's okay to be humble and say, I don't know what I'm doing here and I need some help in this area.
Just a quick question that I had thought about is, how do you respond to whether it's constructive criticism or feedback that's given either from someone you work with or an appraiser? How has an experience like that gone for you?
Yeah, so, when I first started teaching, it was PDOS era. And so, somebody would come into your room and they would check you off as everything looks great, proud of you, because there wasn't a lot to, if you weren't their focus, there wasn't a lot of feedback as to things we can work on. One thing that I love about this district and a reason that I want to stay in this district is we've moved to that TIL model. And as a teacher, looking on that side of things, having somebody come in and coach me on things that they feel like I can grow in from an outsider perspective, I love that because it helps me know that not only am I going to continue and grow, but I'm going to do what's best for my students and what's best for my campus. And so I love knowing that there's ways that I can continue to learn and grow, because we don't ever arrive until we retire. And so we should all be learning every single day.
What a great saying. You never arrive until you retire. That's a great saying. Yeah. Okay, so I kind of want to just end with, of course, we've talked about being a Title I campus. Mm-hmm. So there's opportunities with some Title I funding to provide tutorials outside of the school day. Do you have interest in being able, and with your schedule, are you flexible enough to plan sometimes before and after school for some supplemental pay, but to offer some tutorials for some students who might need some acceleration?
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to be able to work with kids. And, as I mentioned earlier, that I had that role previously as being a UIL coach and coordinator. So I've had the opportunity to work with students outside of school hours and really help grow their interest. And even that with students who needed maybe even a little extra support in areas. So that's something I would love to do.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Kara, we enjoyed this process so much, and as we wrap up, I just want to kind of give you a time frame. We'll be interviewing for the remainder of the day and part of tomorrow, and we would like to take some time to debrief and talk through some things. But by Wednesday, I would love to be able to give you a call either way, and we will go from there.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you for letting me interview today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'll walk you out. Miss Beckner, do you want to take care of the video, and then we'll come back and debrief? So just stay in a holding pattern. I'll be right back.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, are we going?
Yes.
Okay, so let's debrief a little bit. Oh my goodness, was she not impressive?
Yes, and I was just thinking, like, her strong background that she already has on RLA.
Yes.
I feel like Ms. Snow on the first grade team, she already has a strong math-minded. Uh-huh. She's been teaching math forever, coming down to first grade. She's going to help, but I feel like she's that missing piece that we need. And being an intervention for 5 years, that just alone And as much as she kept talking about progress monitoring,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like everything we were talking about before she came in, it's like she was listening, because I was like putting stars next to the things that I was looking for.
Yes, well, just thinking about our campus needs assessment, what we've compiled and the things that we need, especially in K1 and 2, about growing our reading levels and our comprehension skills.
Right.
She brings a lot to the table in terms of just systems for that, and having the 6-year-old mind understand that system. And hey, my reading level is this, but Miss Snow or Miss Hill is working with me to get my reading level here.
Right.
And then I'm going to do a strategy group for. I love her talk. I love her system and routine for that.
And I feel like she brings a lot to our campus as well, just from her experience. So even like our 4th grade teachers who are new this year, and they're going to be doing NWEA, and we're looking for them to grow as well. It sounds like she has a lot of experience that our 3rd, 4th, her being in intervention, she's worked with a variety of teachers. Right. I feel like she's going to be a good resource on our campus for us learning how to progress monitor. I feel like she could even lead later down the road professional developments to teach us some of the things that we're trying to learn and get better at.
Yes, I think she could be she and Lish in 2nd grade can work together to really just provide those little nuggets of wisdom in an after school PD time, like 30, 45 minutes to grow everyone's knowledge in that progress monitoring and just the tricks of the trade to make things progress. I love talking about the PLC process and how it's not just about the relationships with kids, but that relationship of the PLC is so important in that I think she understands the leadership role of the PLC.
Right.
Like everyone takes a responsibility and is a leader in their own right during that PLC time.
And, we have those one teachers that they feel like they know everything. And I feel like she would be a good addition because she already wants to be a learner. And something she had said was, like, talking about the TIL model and being coached, I feel like she's going to be somebody that's going to be open to trying new things. And then I feel like she'll be good by leading by example on this campus because, we got to get that buy-in from teachers.
Sure.
And she sounds like somebody that she would jump on board with versus somebody that we interviewed before her. I feel like that candidate, was more needed to be told what to do. I feel like she didn't bring that value versus this candidate, I feel like, can already be a leader when it comes to coaching sessions.
Right. Which brings us back to that, that campus fit. She's Canyon ISD already. So there's our systems and routine that are district wide. She already is familiar with, and she's familiar with what it takes to run a Canyon ISD PLC and be an effective member. So as far as culture and climate, she's been on Title I campuses and she's been on a non-Title campus. So she brings the experience of both. We have a diverse population, so I feel like she can meet the needs of the diverse.
Oh, yeah.
Really enjoyed her interview.
I did too. And something else I was thinking about is, like, everything seemed to go back to being student driven with data. And I feel like she continued to talk about that. And so I feel like she is going to be able to be an effective teacher when it comes to high quality teachers. And she checks that box.
Well, I definitely think she can bring that high quality instruction. Just talking about her balanced literacy model and the components and the importance she placed on not only just skills groups and guided reading groups, but also centers. The importance that each one of those plays. I think she's kind of so far out of our candidates like the total package.
I agree. And so I know my biggest concern going into who we wanted to hire as our 3rd member, I wanted to make sure that they have discipline down, just because I feel like a classroom's able to run more smoothly whenever a teacher has it. And so everything she was talking about with instruction, building relationships, she talked about building relationships a lot. And I liked that she values that because I feel like our Sundown Lane family values relationships,
It's a big part of who
relationships
we
with
are.
parents, students, teachers, other stakeholders in the community. And I love that she touched on that. So not only will she be able to run her classroom, but it sounds like she is